It's sometimes hard to define Dune as a story. It's very obviously a sci-fi, but at a lot of times the focus is far removed enough from the technology and the interplanetary travel that it can feel a lot more like traditional fantasy. I don't think you could compare it too much to Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, like some people do, although there are some obvious parallels, even on a direct narrative level. Ultimately, it does make sense to me that Dune is a landmark in the sci-fi genre, but I do have some issues, and with the release of the new movie, it made me question those problems a bit closer. What's shaking? My name's Cam, welcome back to another video. I make weekly videos about fantasy and horror books. I do reviews, deep dive discussions, whatever this video was. Whole lot of good fun, so if you like that kind of stuff, I would love it if you stuck around. I read Dune way back in high school when I was skateboarding and dressing like I was in a hair metal band, and to be honest, I don't remember liking it too much. Thing is, I'm not a huge sci-fi fan. Like, there are definitely sci-fi stories that I love, but it's not like something I'll run to. And I'm even less partial to stories that take place in very arid locations, like a literal desert planet. I much prefer like epic fantasy that takes place in more tropical climates, like forests. The more wood, the better.
Hell yeah!
However, with the movie coming out and all of the surrounding hype, I decided to dive back in. Now that I'm older and microscopically more wise, I think I was able to appreciate the story in ways that I simply couldn't back then, but we'll get to that. I was lucky enough to be invited on behalf of Warner Brothers to go to the premiere of Dune here in Australia. I don't know why either. I don't know how much social exposure they expected to get from me going there, but I got invited, so I went. Long after everyone else had already seen it, everyone else in the world, but still a month before the other Aussies, so suckers. It was actually pretty awesome, although I think I was the only booktuber there. It was pretty much just me and a bunch of like Instagram influencers, which is like an introvert's worst nightmare. And they also gave me this little bag that says spice. YouTube, this is not drug, spice, like in the story. It's pretty cool. You add it to your champagne and it like foams up. I'm pretty sure it's just sugar, but still pretty cool. Best part of all though, going to this premiere, was that Kyle MacLachlan was there. He wasn't really like talking to people or anything like that, but he was just there in the audience watching the movie with us, which was really cool. Kyle played Paul, or the main character of Dune, in the 80s adaptation, which aged so well. He's a pretty big actor and I'm actually quite a fan of him. I wanted to ask him about Twin Peaks, but unfortunately I didn't really get a chance, and to be honest, it didn't really seem like that's why he was there. He was just there trying to like watch the movie and have a good time, so I didn't want to bother him. Anyway, today I want to discuss my feelings on the book and the movie, because I do have some hot takes that I know at least a few of you are going to passionately disagree with. But first, let me tell you in as little time as possible the surprisingly and complex story of Dune without spoilers. Dune takes place thousands of years in the future, in a time when mankind has colonized a ton of planets and built an interplanetary empire. Within this empire, there are a number of noble families with armies of their own. One of the most powerful of these families is House Atreides. This is where we find our protagonist, Paul. Yes, his name is really Paul. Sounds like a small-town bank manager. I know. Paul is son to the Duke of House Atreides and to a mother who was part of a gifted spiritual organization called the Bene Gesserit. In the story, they're often referred to as witches. The Bene Gesserit have the ability to compel people into doing things against their will, using something called the Voice. Paul can also kind of do this, which is a pretty big deal. In this empire, the most valuable resource is called spice. It has a weird effect on humans and helps with traveling through space. It is kind of complicated when it comes to the spice, but that's all you really need to know about it for now. The best place to find spice is on a planet called Arrakis, or Dune. It's literally in the air. Now, Dune is under the control of the extremely powerful and obviously evil family called the Harkonnen. They've been harvesting this spice for ages, so they're obviously incredibly rich. At their head is this big fella called the Baron. The emperor of this system ends up kicking the Harkonnen off Dune and putting House Atreides in charge. Now, this is a big problem because, as you can imagine, everyone wants the spice on Arrakis. This is putting a pretty big target on the back of House Atreides. Living on Dune already, there are a race of people called the Fremen, and these sand-dwelling worms that will make you never want to visit the beach again. That's all you really need to know going into it. That's just a very easy spoiler-free summary for the story of Dune. But obviously there are a lot of more complex factors. The important thing is that it is a bunch of powerful organizations fighting for control of a planet with a very rare resource, with little to no regard for the people who already live there on that planet, society. The first thing you need to know about the movie Dune is that it is visually and audibly breathtaking. I never in a million years would have thought that they could make a story set in a desert look so beautiful. Plus, the film's score is done by Hans Zimmer, who is quite literally the best in the biz. So the music is insane. From what I heard, he actually invented new instruments just to make the music for this movie. The music's like very tribal with a lot of vocalizing and these sounds that sound a lot like didgeridoos. It's a very like powerful and vibration type of music that adds an incredible amount of tension and danger to situations that would otherwise seem pretty unimportant. If we're asking which is better, the book or the movie, I think I do have to say that the book is still better. There are elements and story points in the book that you will miss in the movie and that do give a whole different experience to the story. However, I do have a lot of issues with the book. Here's my hot take. I think this is one of the very rare instances where I think you should watch the movie before you read the book. I know I normally wouldn't say that, but the thing is with the book that it really is an incredibly dense read. If you're not paying 110% attention at all times, you will get confused very quickly. In the first chapter, you get a ton of like made up fictional words like Bene Gesserit, a whole ton of words like that, and they just kind of dropped on you. I can appreciate that the story of Dune is amazing, but I think the writing was needlessly bricked. I think a lot of the world building in the book Dune could have been weaved into the actual story more, rather than a ton of exposition dumps or, as you know, Bob moments. It could have been a lot more of characters learning things for themselves through the story. It's made even more difficult to read sometimes when the POV switches from paragraph to paragraph, which is something I haven't really seen much of before, and I hate. Frank's writing style really doesn't leave a whole lot to the imagination. Every piece of important information in Dune is drilled into us as the reader over and over, rather than being naturally weaved into the story itself. Now, that was my big concern for the movie. I was thinking, how the hell are they going to make it a clear and understandable story with so little time? I mean, it's a 2.5 hour movie, but still. And I have to say, I think they pulled it off. It's still a very complex story, so there were some slight info dumps. To be honest, I don't think that could have been avoided. But for the most part, they did a great job giving us, the viewer, information in a very easily digestible way. For example, there were a few scenes where Paul learns something from someone about Arrakis, and then it will hard cut to him in his room basically watching a Netflix documentary about that thing that he just learned. It's only done twice, so it's not like overdone. I know what I just described sounds pretty exhausting if it's done a lot, but it's not overdone, luckily. But it did make those confusing parts a lot more easy to understand and visually engaging, which is exactly what you want when it comes to a movie. So, what is my verdict when it comes to Dune? I think I enjoyed the movie more, but if you don't read the book, I think you really are missing out on a lot of important stuff. And really great stuff. I really do think that watching the movie first will allow you to read the book without worrying too much about what these certain words mean, or what exactly is happening. After you've watched the movie and you understand what all of these made up words mean, you can just kind of enjoy the story. A really, really great story. The movie was incredible. I think this is going to be a huge franchise if they keep this momentum. I'm really excited. I think this is the beginning of something huge. But anyway, have you seen or read Dune? What did you think? Let me know in the comments, or if you passionately disagree with anything I've said, go ahead, leave a comment. As always, thanks for watching, especially for watching through the whole video. You're my favorite. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Catch ya.